Finish it, Earthborn, she growled in chains. His answer shattered every expectation. Commander Zara Vaxtier's violet eyes burned with fury as she knelt in the dust of her conquered homeland. Blood, her own indigo blood, dried on her scaled temple, and her ornate battle armor had been stripped down to the basic plating. The chains around her wrists cut into her copper-toned skin, but she refused to show discomfort. She was royalty, a warrior, the last of the 7th house of Nereus, and now, a prisoner of the Earthborn. The human military outpost hummed with machinery that clashed with the natural crystalline structures of her world. Through the force field window, twin moons cast long shadows across the dying landscape. How had it come to this? The ambush had been perfectly planned, yet somehow the humans had known. Her entire unit decimated. The door slid open with a hiss and a lone human entered. Lieutenant Rhett Cade, she recognized him from intelligence briefings. The notorious ghost of the Terran Expeditionary Forces, with more confirmed Nerian kills than any other human soldier. His eyes were the color of Nerian seas, startlingly blue against his tanned skin. Unlike other human officers, he wore minimal armor and carried only a standard-issue pulse pistol. He didn't need more. His reputation preceded him. Come to finish your collection, Earthborn, Zara spat, her translator implant rendering her words in crisp human English. Another royal head for your masters? Cade didn't respond immediately. He circled her slowly, evaluating. Humans were supposed to be cold, efficient killers. That's what all Nerians were taught from emergence. Yet something in his gaze spoke of weariness, not bloodlust. Your ambush failed because one of your own sold you out, he finally said, his voice lower than she expected. Not because of our tactics. Zara's spinal ridges stiffened in surprise. Betrayal impossible. Nerians die before betraying their house. Not anymore. He knelt before her, bringing himself to eye level. This war has changed everyone's priorities. Finish it, Earthborn, she growled, raising her chin to expose the vulnerable junction of neck and shoulder, the traditional submission posture of a defeated Nerian commander. I won't beg. Cade's expression shifted subtly. He reached toward his belt and Zara steeled herself for the killing blow. Instead, the key to her restraints appeared in his hand. With methodical precision, he unlocked each cuff. What trickery is this? She demanded, rubbing her wrists as the chains fell away. No one deserves to die for following orders, Cade said quietly. I've seen enough death in this war. Zara leapt to her feet, body tense with confusion. She could strike him now. His throat was exposed, his stance relaxed. One swift move and the legendary ghost would fall. Yet she hesitated. Why would you risk treason for an enemy? Cade's eyes met hers steadily. Because I see someone worth saving. The words struck her like physical blows. Worth saving? Nerians were taught humans saw them only as resources to be harvested, their crystal-rich planet to be stripped bare. Your commanders will execute you for this, she said, bewildered by his actions. Probably. He checked the corridor outside. But I stopped caring about that 3 campaigns ago. Now we need to move. Both our forces will be hunting us by dawn. Us? I'm not going anywhere with you, Earthborn. Cade handed her a small plasma blade, her own confiscated during her capture. You have 2 choices, Commander. Come with me and possibly find a way to end this war, or stay and definitely face execution when my replacement arrives in 20 minutes. Zara gripped the familiar weight of her blade. One swift strike and she could reclaim her honor. Instead, she found herself asking, why should I trust you? You shouldn't, he answered honestly. But right now I'm the only chance you've got. As sirens began to wail in the distance, Zara made her choice. Not for the Earthborn, but for herself, and the slight possibility that there might be more to humans than she had been taught to believe. Lead on. Lieutenant Cade, she said, following him into the unknown. But know this, if this is deception, I'll ensure your death is neither quick nor honorable. His smile surprised her. I'd expect nothing less, Commander Vaxtier. The acid rains of Nereus pounded against the abandoned harvester they'd claimed as shelter. 3 days had passed since their escape from the human outpost, and Zara still couldn't fathom why she continued to follow the Earthborn. Lieutenant Cade worked methodically at the harvester's control panel, rerouting power to maintain the atmospheric shield that kept the corrosive downpour at bay. The shield will hold for another 6 hours, he said, wiping grime from his forehead. By then the storm should pass. Zara watched him from her perch by the viewport. You know this planet's weather patterns well for an invader. Not an invader, a reluctant participant. He tossed her a ration pack, human food, but their tests showed it wouldn't poison her system. 4 years stationed here teaches you to respect Narian weather or die. She caught the packet with one fluid motion. Yet you've survived when many others haven't. Lucky, I guess. Narians don't believe in luck, she said, tearing open the ration with her incisors. Only preparation and destiny, Cade laughed softly. Then I was destined to become very well prepared. The exchange lapsed into silence as they ate. Outside, the toxic landscape of what once had been fertile plains stretched to the horizon. The war had ravaged her world, turning lush crystal forests into shattered wastelands. Both sides claimed the other had deployed the ecosystem-destroying weapons. Zara no longer knew what to believe. We need to reach the shattered pass by nightfall tomorrow, Cade said, spreading a terrain map between them. There's a neutral outpost there. Refugees mostly. People who want nothing to do with either side. There are no neutral parties in this war, Earthborn. Rhett, he corrected. If we're going to survive this, you might as well use my name. She considered this, then nodded slightly. Rhett, then. Though it feels strange on my tongue. Better than Earthborn, spat like a curse, he replied, the corner of his mouth lifting. Before she could respond, proximity sensors blared. Zara moved instantly, dousing the lights while Rhett activated the thermal dampeners. Through the viewport, a patrol skimmer cut through the acid rain, its shields glowing purple against the caustic downpour. The insignia marked it as Narian. Her people. Your chance to rejoin your kind, Rhett said quietly, hand hovering near his weapon. For a heartbeat, Zara considered it. Return to her house, explain her escape, resume her rightful place in the command structure. Yet something held her back. The patrol would kill the human without question. And strangely, the thought disturbed her. They would execute me as a collaborator for escaping with you, she lied, surprising herself. Besides, you still haven't told me your plan for ending this war. The patrol passed without detecting them, disappearing into the poisonous mists. Rhett's shoulders relaxed fractionally, but his eyes remained on her. I'm not sure I believe you, he said finally, but I'm grateful anyway. Don't be sentimental. It's tactical. You know the terrain, I know my people. Together our survival chances improve. He nodded, accepting her explanation, though something in his expression suggested he saw more than she intended to reveal. That night, as acid rain drummed against their shelter, Zara woke to find Rhett thrashing in his sleep, sweat beading on his brow despite the chill. Nightmares. She'd seen it in her own soldiers. Battle sickness that came from seeing too much death. Without thinking, she placed a hand on his shoulder. Rhett, she said quietly. Wake up. He came to consciousness instantly, hand grasping her wrist with soldier's reflexes. For a moment they stayed frozen, her copper skin against his tanned arm, eyes locked in the dim emergency lighting. You were dreaming, she said. He released her slowly. Sorry. War affects all beings, she offered, retreating to her side of the shelter. Even the mighty Earthborn. His laugh held no humor. Especially us. We're not as emotionless as your people believe. I'm beginning to see that, Zara admitted, and realized with surprise that she meant it. The neutral settlement of Viridian Post huddled in the shadow of crystalline cliffs, a patchwork of shelters built from salvaged materials. Humans and Narians moved among alien traders and refugees from other worlds caught in the crossfire. No military insignia visible, no weapons openly carried, rules enforced by mercenary peacekeepers who cared only for credits, not politics. Keep your hood up, Rhett murmured as they passed through the makeshift market. Your house markings are too recognizable. Zara adjusted the scavenged cloak, concealing her distinctive facial ridges. And what about you? The ghost is just as notorious. 2 commanding officers, maybe. Host grunts wouldn't recognize me out of uniform. He guided her toward a dwelling on the settlement's edge. This contact owes me a favor. Should give us shelter for a few days. The contact, a grizzled human woman named Celine, with a prosthetic leg and scars speaking of hard-won survival, regarded them with suspicion before nodding once and showing them to a back room barely large enough for 2 sleeping pallets. 1 night, she told Rhett. Then you're on your way. Things are tense after the massacre at Keller Ridge. After she left, Zara turned to Rhett. What massacre? His expression darkened. Human research outpost, non-military. Someone wiped them out 3 days ago. Over 200 civilians. My people wouldn't, maybe not on your orders, and he interrupted. But someone wearing Narian colors did it. Just like someone wearing Earth colors destroyed that crystal shrine last month with 50 of your younglings inside. Zara fell silent. The war had grown beyond either side's control, atrocities committed under both banners. She sank onto one of the pallets, suddenly exhausted. Why did you really free me? She asked, the question that had burned within her since their escape. Rhett sat across from her, close enough that she could see flecks of darker blue in his irises. I told you, no, the truth this time. He considered her for a long moment. 2 cycles ago I was captured by your forces. A Narian commander questioned me, then let me go instead of executing me. Said enough blood had been spilled over misunderstandings. His fingers unconsciously traced a scar along his collarbone. I never knew her name, but when I saw you in that cell I thought, maybe it's time someone else took a chance. That was Commander Ayala, my mother's sister. Zara's voice grew quiet. She was executed for treason 3 lunar cycles later. Understanding passed between them. A moment of shared loss transcending species and allegiance. Later, as Nereus's moons rose, casting dual shadows through the small window, they shared rations and, hesitantly, stories. Rhett spoke of Earth's crowded cities, of oceans larger than Narian continents. Zara described the crystal ceremonies of her childhood, the songs that made the native formations resonate with harmonic frequencies no human instrument could produce. Before the war, she said, demonstrating the traditional hand positions of the 7th crystal harmony, my house was known for producing the finest crystal singers. Even I was trained, though my talents were marginal at best. I'd like to hear it someday, Rhett said, watching her hands with genuine interest. When this is over. Bold of you to assume either of us will survive to see peace, Zara replied, but without her usual edge. Hope's all we've got left, he countered, reaching into his pack to retrieve a small object wrapped in protective cloth. Besides, I have something that might help. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a crystal matrix core, the central processing unit of Narian quantum communications. Zara's breath caught. That's from the High Command Network, she whispered. How did you... Let's just say it's why I was suddenly reassigned to outpost duty. Some of us have been gathering evidence. Communications proving that certain factions on both sides have been prolonging this war intentionally. Resource cartels, weapons manufacturers, they're making fortunes while our people die. Zara took the crystal reverently, recognizing the encoding patterns of her house. And you trust me with this knowledge? I could kill you now and return to my people a hero. Rhett's eyes held steady on hers. Could you, still? The question hung between them. 2 weeks ago, she would have ended his life without hesitation. Now, as she looked at him in the moonlight, she saw not an enemy but a man, weary, determined, with a quiet strength that had nothing to do with weapons or tactics. Her fingers brushed his as she returned the crystal. The contact sent unexpected warmth through her, and she noticed Rhett's slight intake of breath. For a heartbeat, neither moved, caught in the gravity of something neither had anticipated. A distant explosion shattered the moment. They moved as one to the window, watching as flames rose from the settlement's eastern quarter. Patrol, Rhett said grimly, already gathering their supplies. Someone recognized one of us. As they prepared to flee once more, Zara realized with startling clarity that somewhere between captivity and this moment, everything had changed. The Earthborn was no longer her enemy, and that realization was more dangerous than any weapon in this war. The ancient temple complex of Kavaran offered temporary sanctuary among its weathered stones and overgrown courtyards. Once a place of pilgrimage for both species before the war, it now stood abandoned, its carved histories witnessing their unlikely alliance. 3 days had passed since their narrow escape from Viridian Post, a pursuit that had left Rhett with a laser graze across his shoulder that Zara had carefully treated with their dwindling medical supplies. The wound is healing well, she observed, changing the nanogel bandage with gentle precision. Your physiology is more resilient than I was taught. Or maybe I just have a good medic, Rhett replied, wincing slightly as she applied pressure. Zara's fingers lingered on his skin, feeling the warmth radiating from him. Humans ran hotter than Narians, a difference she found increasingly fascinating. We should reach the Peace Embassy in 2 days if we maintain our pace. If it still exists, he said, pulling his tattered shirt back on. We haven't had contact with anyone since Viridian. The temple's stone walls kept them sheltered from scanning technology, but also isolated them from any news of the outside world. Their plan hinged on reaching the rumored Peace Embassy, a neutral diplomatic outpost established by coalition forces from uninvolved systems, allegedly offering amnesty to defectors from both sides. That evening, they made camp in what once had been a meditation chamber. Ancient murals depicted Narians and humans working together to build the temple centuries ago, before colonization disputes sparked the current conflict. Rhett traced the faded paintings with reverence. They don't teach this version of history to Earth soldiers, he said. According to our briefings, Narians were always hostile, and we're told humans came to strip our world of resources, caring nothing for our sacred sites. Zara stood beside him, their shoulders nearly touching. How easily truth becomes the first casualty of war. Rhett turned to her, moonlight filtering through the cracked ceiling, illuminating the copper undertones of her skin. Zara, if we succeed, if we expose the corruption, what then? For you, for us? The question carried weight beyond its simple words. Us. A concept that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. I don't know, she admitted. My house would never accept my return after this. And your military would probably court-martial me if I'm lucky, assassinate me if I'm not. His laugh held no humor. We're walking into exile either way. There are worse fates than exile, she said softly. If chosen with the right companion. The moment stretched between them, fraught with unspoken possibility. Rhett's hand moved to her face, hesitantly tracing the ceremonial markings along her cheekbone. Zara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. Their differences, physiological, cultural, historical, seemed to fall away, leaving only two beings finding connection amid chaos. When his lips met hers, the sensation was foreign, yet achingly right. His mouth was warmer than Anarian's, his approach gentler than her culture's passionate rituals. Zara's hands found his shoulders, drawing him closer as the kiss deepened. Transcending species and allegiance, later, as they lay together on their makeshift bedding, limbs entwined, Zara traced the scars that mapped Rhett's history, some from her own people's weapons. He in turn explored the scaled ridges along her spine with tender curiosity. No words were needed. Their bodies spoke a universal language of comfort and desire that politics could never touch. This changes everything, she whispered against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, faster than her own dual-chambered rhythm. Maybe it already had, he replied, fingers threading through her hair. Maybe from the moment I unlocked your chains. Before dawn, the perimeter alarm jolted them awake. Rhett was on his feet instantly, weapon drawn, while Zara accessed the surveillance system they'd rigged. Human patrol, she hissed. 12 soldiers. Special ops insignia. Rhett's expression hardened. They're not here by coincidence. Someone's tracking us. The crystal matrix, Zara realized. It must emit a signature they can follow. We need to split up, Rhett said, already gathering essential supplies. I'll take the crystal, lead them away. You head for the embassy. Zara seized his arm. No, we started this together. Zara, if both of us are captured, then both of us will fight, she interrupted fiercely. I am not some fragile youngling to be protected, Lieutenant Cade. I am a Narian commander, and I will stand with my chosen partner. The words partner lingered between them. Rhett's expression softened, and he pulled her close for a brief, fierce kiss. Together, then, he conceded. But we do this smart. I have a plan. As dawn broke over the temple ruins, the human patrol encountered not their quarry, but a series of traps that left them disoriented and separated. By midday, Rhett and Zara had not only evaded capture, but commandeered the patrol's skimmer, accelerating their journey toward the Peace Embassy and whatever future awaited them there. The Coalition Peace Embassy rose from the devastated landscape like an impossible dream, a massive structure of interwoven earth steel and Narian crystal, its neutral territory maintained by representatives from 12 uninvolved stellar nations. Rhett and Zara observed from a ridge overlooking the compound, wary after weeks of pursuit and betrayal. Security looks tight, Rhett noted, lowering the binoculars. Mixed species patrols, high-grade shielding. If anyone can protect the information we're carrying, it's them. Zara's expression remained guarded. And if this too is compromised? We're delivering ourselves directly to those who want us silenced. Rhett took her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally now. We've come too far to turn back. Those communications prove that corporate interests engineered confrontations to extend the war. Thousands have died for profit, Zara. Human and Narian. She nodded, squeezing his hand. Then we finish this. Together. They approached the embassy checkpoint at dusk, identifying themselves by name and rank. A final surrender of anonymity that felt both terrifying and liberating. The coalition officers, a Centaurian and a Venusian, processed them with professional detachment, separating them for initial questioning. Standard. Protocol, the Centaurian assured when Zara bristled at being parted from Rhett. You'll be reunited once preliminary interviews are complete. Hours passed in sterile interrogation rooms. Zara recounted their journey, presented evidence, named the officials in her government she suspected were collaborating with weapons manufacturers. Through it all, one fear gnawed at her. What if Rhett was being treated differently? Humans held more political sway in the coalition. Perhaps his testimony alone would be deemed sufficient. When the door finally opened, revealing not her interrogator but a coalition commander, her apprehension grew. Commander Vaxtier, your situation is unprecedented, the official stated, consulting a datapad. Never has an officer of your rank defected with such sensitive intelligence. Where is Lieutenant Cade? She demanded, being processed according to... The building shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring through the compound. The commander's communication device erupted with urgent reports, simultaneous attacks on the embassy's north and south quadrants. Breach in progress. They found us, Zara whispered, then louder. I need to find Rhett. Taking advantage of the chaos, she slipped past the commander into the corridor. Emergency protocols had unlocked internal doors, allowing her to navigate toward the human processing sector. Around her, coalition personnel rushed to defensive positions as explosions rocked the structure. She found Rhett in a corridor intersection, already fighting his way toward her. Blood streaked his face from a cut above his eye, but his expression brightened with fierce joy upon seeing her. Separate strike teams. He called over the alarms. Human Black Ops from the south. Narian elite force from the north. They're working together! It confirmed their worst suspicions. The highest levels of both military commands were complicit in extending the war. Together, they fought their way to the embassy's communication hub, where coalition technicians worked frantically to repel cyber attacks. We need to broadcast the crystal data, Zara told the lead technician. System-wide, unfiltered, override all channels. Impossible during an attack, the technician protested. Security protocols. We'll get everyone in this building killed. Rhett interrupted, plugging the crystal matrix into the console interface. This ends now. Outside the communications center, the sounds of combat intensified. They had minutes at most before both strike teams converged on their position. I can create a localized broadcast, the technician conceded, fingers flying across the interface. But we need to boost the signal to reach beyond the immediate sector. Zara's military training provided the answer. The embassy's defense shield. Reconfigure it as an amplifier. That would leave us completely exposed to the attack, the technician warned. Rhett and Zara exchanged glances. Do it, they said in unison. As the technician worked, Rhett pulled Zara aside. If this works, there's no going back. Both our governments will label us as the worst kind of traitors. My loyalty is no longer to a government, she replied, touching his face. It's to the truth. And to you. The doors to the communication hub burst open, admitting soldiers from both forces. Humans and Narians, momentarily united in their mission to silence the defectors. Weapons raised, they advanced on Rhett and Zara. Step away from the console, ordered the human commander, a colonel whose insignia marked him as Black Division, the unit responsible for covert operations and deniable atrocities. Beside him, a Narian elite guard captain, bearing the crest of House Dravir, rivals to Zara's lineage, hissed, "Surrender the crystal matrix." Traitor! Rhett stepped forward, positioning himself protectively before Zara and the console. You're too late. The transmission is already processing. The colonel's finger tightened on his trigger. Then you've served your purpose. What happened next occurred so rapidly that witnesses would later give conflicting accounts. The colonel fired. Zara lunged, pushing Rhett aside. The blast caught her in the shoulder instead of his heart. Rhett's return fire struck the colonel as the Nerian captain moved to attack. Coalition security forces flooded the room, engaging both strike teams. And through it all, the crystal matrix data streamed outward, carrying incontrovertible proof of the conspiracy to every communicator, viewscreen, and news outlet across both human and Nerian territories. Hours later, in the embassy's medical ward, Zara awakened to find Rhett beside her bed, his hand wrapped gently around hers. His face showed exhaustion, but his eyes held triumph. It worked, he told her softly. The broadcasts reached everywhere. Both governments are in chaos.
Military commanders are being arrested.
Corporate executives are fleeing. There are protests in the streets of Earth's capitals and demonstrations in the crystal plazas of Nereus. Zara struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain in her bandaged shoulder. And us? What happens now? A coalition official entered the room, her expression solemn yet hopeful. That depends on you both. Your actions have made you heroes to some, villains to others, but you've created an opportunity for real peace. The Coalition Council is convening an emergency summit between human and Nerian representatives. They've requested your presence, not as prisoners but as advisors. When the official left, Rhett sat on the edge of Zara's bed, his fingers tracing the patterns on her uninjured arm. I never thought we'd get this far, he admitted. I just wanted to save one life, yours. Because I was worth saving? She asked, echoing his words from their first encounter. The best decision I ever made, he affirmed, leaning forward to press his forehead against hers in a gesture that bridged their cultures, a human sign of affection that mirrored the Nerian ritual of trust. 1 month later, as the first true armistice in a decade was signed in the rebuilt Grand Chamber of the Peace Embassy, Zara stood beside Rhett, their hands joined openly before representatives of both worlds. They were no longer commander and lieutenant, Nerian and human, but something new, ambassadors of a fragile hope that had blossomed from the most unlikely beginning. When you freed me from those chains, Zara whispered as they watched the signing ceremony. Did you ever imagine this? Rhett smiled, the scar above his eye now a permanent reminder of their journey. I imagined saving your life. You ended up saving worlds. We saved each other, she corrected, leaning into his embrace, and discovered something neither of our peoples had found in centuries of conflict. What's that? He asked, though his eyes suggested he already knew, that the heart, human or Nerian, is indeed the most dangerous and beautiful weapon of all. She kissed him then, before the assembled delegates of 2 healing civilizations, sealing not just peace between nations but the promise of a future neither had dared to imagine. One built not on ancient hatreds but on the simple, revolutionary act of seeing someone worth saving. In the decades that followed, as human-Nerian cooperation transformed the war-ravaged planet into a thriving homeworld for both species, historians would debate the great political and economic factors that ended the conflict. But those who knew Rhett and Zara understood a simpler truth. Peace began the moment an enemy became a person, chains gave way to choice, and hatred surrendered to the more powerful force of love.